All right, well, I didn't really want to have to revisit this topic, but I'm going to do it because I've been seeing so many videos about Kell Brook, Spence. So much has been said about, why Kell Brook lost. So much has been talked about on did he quit or did he not quit. And, you know, this fight is still having some type of dialogue in the YouTube boxing community, not only in the YouTube boxing community, but in boxing in general. And I want to go to a video that Dwyer made, and I respect Dwyer wholeheartedly, man. He's a very intelligent person. I don't always agree with him, but I really like how he articulates his points. And he mentioned something about how if this fight was fought 5 years ago, that Brook would have won this fight. And he just mentioned that he thought a lot of this was because of the weight why Kell Brook faded in the second half of the fight. But I'm going to kind of counter that argument in this video. Because if you go back to when Kell Brook fought Carson Jones, he faded in that fight. He looked uncomfortable in that fight. And he showed some, deficiencies in that fight, particularly fighting on the inside. So right then and there, that was part of laying the blueprint to how to beat Kell Brook. Basically, Carson Jones fought a fast-paced fight, threw a lot of punches, and fought deep inside the pocket. And he really made Kell Brook feel uncomfortable in that fight when he got up close and tried to gut it out with him on the inside, because he was fighting through the clinches. He wasn't accepting the clinches, and he just kept working. And, so much is talked about, why a fighter fades. And it's almost 100% or 95% people will say that a guy fades because he's not in shape. But that's not the case, because, these guys train hard. These guys are fighting at the top level, okay? And the training and the preparation for the fight is sometimes more physically tasking than the fight itself. But the thing is this, people don't just fatigue because of physical activity, because they're pushing their body to a limit that they're not comfortable with. A lot of that has to do with mental fatigue as well. When you're not comfortable in a situation and, your body goes into panic mode, okay, your adrenaline is burning up at a pace that you don't want it to burn up at. Okay, it's like the fight or flight. And when you see a guy in that fight or flight situation, how he reacts to that really speaks to, what's going on psychologically in his body. And, what's going on psychologically in his body is going to affect what's going on physiologically in his body. So when you're putting someone in a situation where they're not comfortable and they're not used to being in, then their adrenaline is going 0 to 100, man. And it's burning up at a pace that they're not comfortable with, and that the human body's not comfortable with. So when Kell Brook is forced to fight a fast-paced fight, okay, his first instinct is to grab, try to slow down the pace of the fight, and nullify his opponent up close long enough, hoping the referee's going to break it, or he'll release the clinch, after kind of getting his second wind a little bit, and then he'll reset and go back on the outside and fight more at a range where he's comfortable with. And, he can pick and choose the spots in which he wants to fight and and where he wants to slow the pace of the fight down. So in that Carson Jones fight, I saw something there. I said, what? This shows me right now this guy doesn't like to fight a fast-paced fight, okay? And this guy does not like to fight on the inside. And even in the Porter fight, the problem in that fight was Sean Porter and even Kenny Porter, they were surprised at how much he clinched. They expected him to fight it out with them a little bit on the inside, and when he didn't, they were surprised, and they expected the referee to break that clinch. So Sean Porter accepted the clinch. And if you look at Sean Porter after that fight, he's even become more of an aggressive fighter. You see when he gets up close, he's even more gritty and grimy, and he's fighting through these clinches. When anytime he feels that contact now, he's, you know, maneuvering and twisting and turning and jockeying for position. He's not accepting that clinch anymore, okay? And he's fighting out of clinches, and he's, you know, pushing his way and muscling his way through clinches now. And because of that, I think he learned his lesson in that fight. And, you know, in that fight, I think a lot of fighters saw that, and they picked up on that, and they said to themselves, you know what? We can't rely on the referee to break up these clinches. We have to fight through these clinches because we know this guy doesn't like it on the inside. So there's not really a lot of danger from this guy on the inside. So we're better suited to just try to, you know, fight in there with him, and you know, try to wiggle one arm free and punch with the free hand, or, you know, give him a nudge, give him a shoulder, kind of get low and start digging to the solar plexus a little bit. So I think that the Carson Jones fight and the Shawn Porter fight kind of laid the blueprint on how to beat Kell Brook. So, you know, Dwyer likes to say that this was more of a weight thing of him fatiguing, but no. Errol Spence even said that I could tell watching Kell Brook that he doesn't like to fight a fast-paced fight. He doesn't like to fight on the inside. And early on, you know, Errol Spence was trying to get his rhythm, and I'm not going to say that Errol Spence didn't have success. Kell Brook didn't have success early on, but at the end of the day, once Errol Spence did kind of pick up the rhythm, and once he decided that, you know what, I got to kick it into second gear, once he did pick up the pace of this fight and take it to the inside, and when he got there, he did not accept the clinch, was able to wrestle free one of his arms, always was able to at least get one arm free, like I said, where he could punch and, you know, touch touch Kell Brook to the body. You know, every time he touched him, you know, he made a deposit to the body, and each time he touched him, that was, you know, one step in taking the wind out of Kell Brook's sails. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this was all about the weight, this was all about Gennady Golovkin. This was more so about the style and the game plan. Because, you know, way back when, like I said, you know, that fight I mentioned, you know, that was the fight that laid the blueprint. That was the fight with Carson Jones that laid the blueprint. And Carson Jones almost won that first fight. Now, I know Kell Brook made some adjustments a little bit in the second fight, whatever. But right then and there, in that first Carson Jones fight, the weaknesses were exploited. And Shawn Porter was not able to fully exploit those weaknesses. But if you look after that Shawn Porter fight, what type of fighter possessed that type of style that could exploit those weaknesses? There was only two of them. And that's Gennady Golovkin and that's Errol Spence. Because those are two guys that use the pressure, use the high-paced punch output, and use the body shots and use the inside game to beat Kell Brook. Because after that Shawn Porter fight, if you look at Kell Brook's resume, very, very thin. And then he, you know, when he decided to step up to Gennady Golovkin, which was a huge challenge, moving up 2 weight classes. But again, you know, I just don't think it was the size. More so, I think it's more of the style. I think anyone that can employ that type of style, I think they'll have success against Kell Brook. So this has, to me, I'm not saying it has nothing to do with the weight drop. I'm not saying it had nothing to do with the Golovkin fight. But I think those two issues are secondary. And I think the big issue here was the style and the game plan that enabled Errol Spence to win this fight first. And those other things, I think, are getting talked about too much. And the game plan and the style of Errol Spence is not getting talked about enough, because it's been mentioned time and time again. Who has Kell Brook fought? outside of Sean Porter up until the time he won the title. After they won the title from Sean Porter, he had a couple soft touches. And, the only big name that he has on his resume that he beat is Sean Porter. I don't see any other big name fighter, top level welterweight that he's beaten outside of Sean Porter. And then when he faced another top level welterweight in Errol Spence, you saw what happened. And then he went up and fought Gennady Golovkin. So maybe things may have been slightly different, but my whole point is this. Kell Brook would always have problems with this type of style. He's going to go up to junior middleweight, and this style will be presented to him again, and you will see the same result. And then people will go back and say, well, it's because of what Gennady Golovkin did, and then it's because of what Errol Spence did. Yeah, it was because of what they did, but because they did what they did, because they were able to employ a type of style and fight a type of fast-paced fight that Kell Brook does not like to deal with. And you can go back and you can look at other fighters. Look at Tommy Hearns, who suffered that vicious beating from Marvin Hagler. No one said Tommy Hearns was done after that fight. He went on to win more titles after that fight. He became the light heavyweight champion after that fight. He became the super middleweight champion after that fight. Same thing with Manny Pacquiao. He was knocked out by Marquez. Some people said, oh, I don't know if he's going to be the same, but we'll have to see. He went on and won another title, and he's still fighting today. So Kell Brook, yeah, even Miguel Cotto. I want to make one more point. Miguel Cotto, Antonio Margarito, and Manny Pacquiao. He was said to be done after those performances, but he came back and he won a junior middleweight title, and he won a middleweight title, and he fought Canelo Alvarez, and I thought he was very competitive in that fight. I thought he lost the fight I had at 115, 113 for Canelo. He went on and fought Floyd. Before the fight, I thought Floyd was going to stop him, but Cotto gave Floyd all he can handle. So other fighters have suffered really bad setbacks in their careers, and they've come back from them. So this isn't about how much Kell Brook has left. This is about the psychological makeup of Kell Brook. Because if you're hearing things like, yeah, he got hurt in the other eye, but he was thinking about Gennady Golovkin. So now when he goes up to junior middleweight and he gets hurt in the eye again, he's not only going to think about Gennady Golovkin, he's going to think about Errol Spence. And if he's going to constantly be thinking about, getting hurt in a fight, okay, if he's going to be second guessing himself because of previous injuries in his career, where these other fighters, Muhammad Ali, same thing. How many times did he fight with a broken jaw? Joe Frazier broke his jaw in their fight in the I think the 11th or 12th round, or the 14th or 15th round in that fight. Joe Frazier broke Muhammad Ali's jaw. Ken Norton broke Muhammad Ali's jaw. Look at all of the setbacks that Muhammad Ali suffered in his career, and some of the beatings he took in his career, but he always came back and was able to overcome the adversity. So it's not about, what these guys took out of him physically. No. It's about what they took out of him mentally, because other fighters have been able to come back mentally from these setbacks. And, I don't think Kell Brook will come back mentally from these setbacks, because if he's talking about, well, I didn't want to go blind, well, the reality of the situation is every time you step in that ring, you run the risk of not leaving it the same way you went into it. So, he can go up to 154 if he wants. He can continue fighting if he wants. But again, there's going to be a bigger, stronger version of Errol Spence at 154 that's going to be able to do the same things that Errol Spence did, that's going to fight a fast-paced fight, that's going to fight a gritty fight on the inside. And there's going to be a point in a fight at 154 where he may get hit in the eye and it's going to swell up again. And not only the ghost of Gennady Golovkin is going to be dancing around in his head, but now the ghost of Errol Spence is going to be dancing around in his head. So, it's not about the weight that made him do what he did in that ring. It's not a result of the weight. it's more of a result of the psychological damage that Gennady Golovkin and Errol Spence incurred in him. And also, it's just about him not being able to deal with a specific style and having problems with it. And that's not to say he's not an excellent fighter. What he does well, he does well. He's really good at it. But he just has proven that he cannot deal with this type of style. He has very serious problems dealing with this type of style. So that's just my thoughts on the whole thing. I don't think there's any easy pickings for him up at 154, particularly at the top 10 level, at the championship level. My advice would be to him, and again, it's not my job to tell another man what to do with his life, but if I was a close friend or family member of his, and I really cared about the guy, I would tell him to retire. That's just my opinion on the whole thing, man. I would tell him to retire. Let me know what you guys think. Tell me if I'm off base here, or tell me if you agree with me. Beavis out. Talk to y'all soon. Till next time, peace.